Good morning, everyone. It's Lunabelle. Y'all, I might have to do two posts for this one. I'm not sure. But y'all, if y'all are ready for adventure with Spirit, let's go. I do believe this is going to be part 4 of the Red Rose Prophecy. And y'all, I went and took a nap at like late evening, like 7 o'clock. It's the numbers, y'all. But I woke up at 1. And y'all, my mind, y'all know how that goes. Spirit's going to leave. And I kept getting references to the Golden Dawn, and I was like, oh shit. You know, gold has been popping up, but specifically for me, references to the Golden Dawn. So, y'all, I pull it out, and y'all, I'm going to quote from this book right here. Now, I may not read the whole thing, but y'all, I might have to do another part to this just because skip through all these tabs. Anyhow, howbeit, we know after a time there will now be general reformation, both of divine and human beings, human things, according to our desire and the expectation of others. For it is fitting that before the rising of the sun, like today on Easter, there should appear and break forth aurora. You don't say. The light bringer, Aurora, Lucifer, Venus. You don't say. Or some clearness of divine light in the sky, like the star Regulus. And in the meantime, so some few which shall give their names, like a secret society, may join together, thereby to increase the number and respect of our fraternity, to make a happy and wish for a beginning of our philosophical canons prescribed to us by our brother R.C. R.C. Y'all, of course, that made me think. And y'all, I had to look up what the Fama fraternity was, the FMA. It reminds me of something else. Fraternity. And when I looked it up, it is, if you translate, it is the report of the fraternity of the Rose Cross. You don't say. Wow. Anyhow, so I keep going. But what caught my attention were the initials. RC. And y'all, that reminded me of my mama and what she used to say to us, you know, growing up. That her maiden name was Crowell. But if you flip the W upside down, you had Cromwell. And that when the family immigrated here, well, you know, anyhow, we'll get that later. Y'all, they're referenced as indentured students in history. I mean, indentured servants and history students, anyhow. But they didn't want people to know they were related to Cromwell. Anyhow, that's why the name was changed. Anyhow, and I keep getting downloads about Cromwell, but also when I did the channels at the end, well, it had nothing to do with Bradley, but they were channeled information I was getting in about the Gulf, but particularly about the original 13 families. Now, let's keep going. Oliver Cromwell was known for many things, but he helped overthrow Charles I in the English government and whatnot. But if you look Cromwell up on Wikipedia, y'all, and I'm quoting this directly from the internet where I was researching all this shit. He was an English statesman, politician, soldier, widely regarded as the most important figures in British history. He came to prominence during the War of the Three Kingdoms. Of course, I'm like, one moment. 433, I'm quoting this. Cromwell's historical reputation is debated. He is a controversial figure due to his use of military force to acquire and retain political power, for his role in the execution of Charles I, the brutality of his 1649 conquest of who? Ireland. Winston Churchill described Cromwell as a military dictator. Now, in Ireland, they had what they called plantations, allegedly, historically speaking. One moment. If you continue on throughout the history, what I got curious about then, I'm still, searching for Oliver Cromwell in the original 13 colonies. I was taken to the Navigation Acts, more broadly known as the Acts of Trade. Trade and navigation were a series of English laws that were developed and promoted and regulated English shipping, trade, and commerce with other countries and its own colonies. One moment. I got paused there for a minute. 555. Spirit took me somewhere else also. Along with the Navigation Acts, one of the things, and y'all, I'm quoting from the internet, it says, soon after they set some precedents, the English did, Cromwell did. Soon after the actual settlements had been made in America, these early requirements illustrate the English theory then held regarding the governmental control of maritime commerce. As early as 1641, some English merchants urged that these rules be embodied in an act of parliament during the Long Parliament. Hold on. All right, here it is. With the establishment of overseas colonies, a distinct colonial policy began to develop. And the principles embodied in the early Navigation and Trade Acts also had some more immediate precedence in the provisions of the charters granted to the London and Plymouth Company in various royal patents later bestowed by Charles I, Charles II, as well as the early regulations concerning the tobacco trade. Now, one moment. Cromwell also had the Colony Acts. They were enacted between 1651 and 1673, and they were a series of laws that regulated trade and shipping in the British Empire, including the American colonies. And they've already established precedents back before, 1641? One moment. You can actually go back further, I believe, to Richard II. One moment. Anyhow, it takes us to the War of the Three Henrys. But also, I kept digging. And I kept going back to the Roman times in this fraternity. But one of the things I also noticed was the letter H. I don't know why I had to. Well, the honoraries, it mentioned that they were honoraries. Well, in English society, there were some class distinctions with the title of honorary. One moment. A social, then later legal standing in society, a man born to an influential family is the honorary. One moment. I'm quoting from Wikipedia. Y'all could Google that. But it says the honoraries and the other one merged as two broad distinctions of social and legal status. Those who held the higher offices, the honoraries, and the humbler people, the division starts to become apparent near the 2nd century. Okay, y'all, it took me, hold on, let me show you this. I want y'all to read it, though. It says that the population was introduced, but at the beginning of the Severan dynasty, the Roman citizens began to divide for so-called the honoraries and the humiliaries. The first group focused people on so-called noble birth. There was a class distinction. The original families. Just like the line of Christ continues, the original line continues. The original 13.